God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thy will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, so that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, so that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. Of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life, may I do thy will always. Amen.
I'm Joey, and this is the Gandee Show, a place for stories, connection, and a reminder that recovery is possible. Help me get God in the room with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Today, I have a harrowing story from Nazario Mendez. Let's get right into it. I remember early on in my life, everything seemed very normal with a stay at home mom and a dad that was his own boss with his own landscaping company. He worked hard every day to provide our family with everything we needed, up until I was about 10 or 11 years old. My parents would always have friends over on the weekends, drinking and playing dominoes, so that was a normal thing for me to see growing up. But I remember they all used to walk into the bathroom 5 or 6 people deep, and they would tell us that they were just going pee together. What I learned as I got older was that they were going in there to snort cocaine. I always thought that was weird of them, but I didn't think much into it because I was a kid. But I had a brother that lived with us growing up, and I remember him saying they were doing drugs in the bathroom, but I didn't even know what drugs were. My brother played a huge part in my story because he was the first person I ever saw smoking weed, drinking underage, and doing other drugs with his friends. My family and I always walked on eggshells around him because he would spaz out in the blink of an eye and start beating me up or breaking things in the house. I remember him being in and out of facilities like DYS, YDC, and other behavior facilities. So I believe that was who showed me the path of addictive criminal thinking. It was always really bad when he was around, but that is a whole nother can of worms. As I got about 10 or 11 years old, my dad left my mom for my uncle's girlfriend. That definitely altered the way I thought about life. Anyways, I would go over and visit with my dad in Geneva, and I would stay with him for a while, and that was when I would start smoking weed, doing acid, and drinking. I still lived with my mom though, but would go to my dad's for the weekends. Sometimes I would go over to my best friend's house and smoke and drink over there because it was more comfortable for me. When my mom moved to Geneva, my dad would have me walk cocaine over in a bag of clothes so that I could stay with him for the week. One day, I looked inside and I started taking some for myself. My mom would say something to my dad and he would just go with it. At that point, he already knew I was smoking and he said he didn't care as long as I didn't say anything about what he does. Eventually, I moved in with my best friend and his family, who became my foster family. I started popping pills here and there and doing cocaine a lot. I had a big phase with Xanax, and I don't really remember a whole 3 years due to them. None of those things really took a toll on me, but when I started doing perks, that's what got me. I very quickly became physically and mentally dependent on them. Not even a couple months of doing those, I decided to do heroin. It was much cheaper with greater effect. I was very open from the start that I was doing heroin. I told almost everyone around me because I didn't look at it like it was a problem. I remember just breaking some out in front of my mom and doing it, and she was so shocked by it. I was in a relationship with a very nice girl, and it started right before I started doing heroin, so she very quickly became a hostage in my story. I tortured that girl because she would tell me she would stay awake lying on my chest to make sure I was still breathing. I wrecked her car, took all the money she had to support my habit, and had her living at Motel 6 with me in Geneva. That has always been a regret of mine because she never deserved any of it. I continued to keep doing dope when she left me, and I would cry staring at myself in the mirror, asking myself, how the hell did I get here? Wondering if it would be easier to kill myself than to live another day like this. I completely spiraled and I caught some serious charges, and the courts decided to send me to rehab in Youngstown, and that was my first time being introduced to the rooms. I was willing to at least try until my second day of rehab. I got a call that my little brother had overdosed and passed away. Goodness. I remember screaming in the middle of the hall and people rushing over to me to check on me. I never knew that was even a possibility for him to pass away. It was the most painful feeling I dealt with up until then. I asked God all the time, why him and why not me? Can I trade places with him, please? I never got an answer back. The rehab decided they would take me to the funeral because I told them if they couldn't, I understood, but I'm leaving if not. There was no way I was missing that funeral. So they took me, and I of course seen a friend of mine that I was using with and got some dope from him. Took it back to the rehab, waited about a week, and did it the day before my birthday. The next day, they locked the doors to the facility and made everyone scream. I got kicked out and forced to go to another one. After that, I stayed sober for about 18 months. But then I decided to start getting high in the sober house I was at with my house manager, and I would walk to get my dope any time of the night. I kept relapsing in that sober house, and they kept letting me stay. After a while, I just left and moved in with someone that I met in sober living. They were also drinking at the time. I started speedballing and doing whatever I could to get high, robbing, stealing, lying, whatever I had to do. I became homeless for a winter, and I was in such a depressing state of mind, I tied up a rope to hang myself but backed out at the last moment. I kept contemplating suicide before. I just decided to come back home. I moved in with my mom in Ashtabula, living on her couch in her senior living complex, not showering or eating for a week at a time. I tried to overdose myself multiple times, but I was always woken up by someone or myself. I would cry on my way to go get dope because I wanted out so bad, but I did not know how to go about it. I knew I could go to detox, but that wasn't an option for me. I've always been the type of person that needed the extra support going into rehab by the courts or whoever, because otherwise I wouldn't stay. I remember I would walk from Ashtabula all the way to Madison, 4.5 hours each way just to get a 20 sec. Once I would get it, I would walk all the way back just to start getting dope sick halfway back home. I fell asleep one time after doing some dope in the woods in Madison, and I woke up 6 hours later wondering where I was, with my phone and a straw on my lap. It scared the hell out of me because if I would have died there, nobody would have found me for weeks. Finally, I got locked up for a possession charge in Geauga, and they sent me back to rehab just for me to leave and start getting high all over again. But this time was with a girl. She overdosed one night and the cops arrested me. So Geauga sent me to NeoCap in rehab again. I got kicked out of NeoCap, but this time when I went back to jail, I did a lot of self-reflection on who I want to be in life and where I wanted to be in 5 years. And I decided that I was going to put my all into staying sober. I changed the crowd I hung with. I changed my mindset, which I believe is the most important part of getting sober and staying sober. And I changed my attitude towards sobriety. Now I have a girlfriend and a family who support everything I do. I'm building my own landscaping business to take after my father, and I have 20 months sober. That's incredible. Recently, I lost my father due to health complications, and I had to make the decisions to put him on and take him off life support. And to me, that will forever be the hardest things I will ever have to do. But I did it sober and with amazing people around me supporting every decision I made. I got to make him proud because he's seen me sober before he passed away. I believe that is the reason why getting high about it wasn't an option for me. If I can do it, anyone can, and that's the truth. Thank you for letting me share some of my story and be a part of something beautiful. Best of luck to anyone going through what I have went through. Sincerely, Nazario Mendez. Man, what an incredible story. I know a lot of people will be able to relate to that. I know I can relate to that a lot. I want to start by saying, man, I'm really proud of you. I'm so proud of you, dude. And I'm so happy you're alive. And obviously, God has a plan for your life, because if He didn't, surely, with what I just read, you would be dead by now. I can relate a lot to a lot of your story, Nazario. I also had a normal childhood growing up. I mean, whatever normal means, but I believe that I had everything a child should have growing up. Um, I don't remember seeing anything out of place, when I was a kid, as far as like, I don't really remember seeing my parents do anything like out of the ordinary, at least until I was like in my early teens, you know. I also have a brother who is a big part of my story. He's 10 years younger than me. And I know now that I wish I would have understood sooner what a huge influence I had on him. I know for sure that my drug use and my behavior absolutely influenced his life. And, you know, like I said in episode 1, we're going to get into my story one of these times, but, um, you know, hindsight's 2020. Smoking weed with dad. Okay. See, I never really had a relationship with my father. Um, he I don't know what it was. He never really liked me too much, and he would hang out with me. He would take me everywhere when I was a baby, and then as soon as I was able to talk, my mom used to trick me into telling on him for smoking weed around me, and then he stopped hanging out with me. And then the next time we had any kind of like father-son bond that I remember was when I was 16 years old. We went on our first family vacation to Florida, first and only family vacation. Um, my little brother was 6, and we told him that we were going to Florida for his 6th birthday. But really, we were going down there because my great grandma was getting up there in age, and we weren't going to get to see her again. So, um, but as a 16-year-old, I had to bring a big old bag of weed with me. Um, so, I did that. I thought I was so slick too. I hid it I took a brand new stick of deodorant, a brand new stick of Old Spice, and I unscrewed the deodorant stick all the way out of it, and I stuffed a bag of weed down into the deodorant stick, and I put the cap back on it like it was brand new. And I thought I was so slick. And then, the whole time, the whole trip down to Florida, I'm like so paranoid, thinking, oh my God, we're gonna get pulled over and the cops are gonna find the weed and I'm gonna get in trouble and we're gonna go to jail. None of that happened, but we got to Florida, and here's how slick my dad is. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. We get down there. He wakes my mom up. My mom carries my little brother in the house, and he corners me at the back of our vehicle, and he goes, "Where's it at?" And I'm like, "Where's what at?" And I knew damn well what he was talking about, but I was gonna play stupid. And he goes, "We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is you tell me where it is, and maybe I won't take it all. The hard way is I smash all your shit until I find it." So I had a pivotal decision to make. And knowing my father, he would have made good on that promise. He would have smashed all my shit until he found it. So I ended up giving it to him. And he took the whole bag. Didn't even look at me. Didn't say another word to me. I was sick. I was so pissed. The next day, I get up, just so upset still. And he's in the bathroom for like an hour. And I'm sitting, my grandma had this white wicker couch in her sunroom, and I'm sitting on this white wicker couch waiting for him to come out of the bathroom. And finally he comes out of the bathroom, and as he's walking past me, he drops a joint on my lap. And I'll never forget it. It was like the heavens opened up, and like the angels sung as the joint fell like a feather on my lap. That was the coolest moment in my entire existence leading up to that, because I always wanted to hang out with him. you know, even in my adult life, like I still would find myself like wondering what his problem is with me, or like, so naturally as a son, I thought, oh man, I was on top of the world. I'm like, now my dad thinks I'm cool again. And so that was how we bonded. We both had a drug habit. Um Xanax. Goodness gracious. You mentioned you had about a 3-year period in your life that you don't remember. I can totally relate to that. I went through a bad breakup and I wanted to die too. And I would start my day. I would not get out of bed before I would take 4 Xanax bars every single morning with the orange Gatorade every day. I would call it breakfast bars. And that's how I would start my day. And I would just be a mess. Dude, I was a walking mess. Literally, probably 2 years of my life I have no memory of. And then you got down to perks. And that's, yeah. Um, Perks also altered the course of my life. Um, I'll never forget the first time I did a perk. It was with one of my good friends. You know, you know who you are if you see this. I still love you. He's a good dude. He would give you the shirt off his back. And one day I'm like, I wanted to know what the hype was about. I'm like, let me get one of those. And I'll never forget his words. He said, I don't know, bro. He said, once you have the knowledge, you can't unknow it. And truer words were never spoken to me. Once you have the knowledge, you can't unknow it. I was able to maintain quite a few years just with doing perks. I didn't do heroin until I was 31, 30 or 31. And on the contrary to you, I was ashamed of myself. Man, I was so ashamed of my heroin use. It was just such a shameful thing. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. Um, you talked about taking a girl hostage. I can also relate to that as well. I've taken a couple girls hostage, and it sucks, dude. It really sucks. You know, I have a little over 2 years of sobriety, and I know that I want to be a part of the light in this world. I am doing what I can I'm seeking a relationship with God, and I believe the more you come into a relationship with God, the more you're able to understand what your role is as a man. Being a provider, a protector, and a role model. You know, yeah. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror, and I absolutely believe that I would be better off dead. I'm so sorry about your little brother, dude. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know what to say about this, but like I just know that my little brother's my best friend, and I don't know if I would have made it through something like that. So I have a lot of respect for you. My condolences to you and your family. I'm really sorry for what you went through, and I'm happy you're alive, Nazario. Similar to you, the cycle of addiction for me, I was not able to arrest it on my own. It had to quite literally be arrested for me. Thank God for the police and for Lake County Jail and for Lake Geauga Recovery Centers and for Geauga Drug Court. They saved my life. They saved my life. I would be dead. I should be dead. Like I said to you earlier, God has a bigger plan for our lives than our little pea brains could have ever fathomed for ourselves, because if not, we would both be dead. I got to a point to where I was willing to do whatever it takes to stay sober. Um, if you would have told me I had to eat dirt and stand on my head and anything, dude, you could have told me anything, and I'll do it. You know, I believe the amount of effort and energy and tenacity it takes to maintain a heroin addiction, if you can put a quarter amount of that energy in doing anything, we're gonna be all right, bro. I'm proud of you, dude. Thank you for watching. If you have a story you want to share, please email me at thegandeeshow@gmail.com. Until the next one, remember, you are loved. Recovery is possible. God has a bigger plan for your life. There is hope. There is a way out of this. I'm out.